today we're talking about, is AI taking data engineer jobs? Is AI replacing us engineers? I posted about this a few times and people were always saying that I was completely wrong and that I'm going to see that they are going to take our jobs. Because I'm always arguing that there are so many facets of the data engineer job that makes it not as easy to replace an engineer. Right? And already Anthony is posting here, yes, it will. I keep hearing you still need humans, and then uncomfortably laughs. We will still need humans. It's just the company won't need 10 or 100 engineers. They need 1 or 10. Okay, so let's talk about it. Now, the thing is, when I was thinking about this, and I haven't came to a conclusion myself here. This is us talking, right? We're just developing. I think Anthony has a point, but let's look at it from a different angle first. Let's look at it from an angle of what actually is it that a data engineer does, right? And where can AI come in and take our jobs and replace us, right? So for that, I was thinking, okay, how can I look at this? And I remembered a year ago, I did a course for LinkedIn Learning about problem solving for data engineers. And we can look at that course and just talk about it. Okay, which are the parts? How easy is it to replace the human, replace the engineer part in each of these parts? Okay, let me bring it up. I'm going to put this in. Again, if you have questions or comments, put them in the chat. I'm here. I planned for this to be roughly half an hour, so we don't go too long. Okay, so let me show you here. So this is from my LinkedIn Learning course. And I was thinking about the phases. When I built this course, I was thinking, okay, which are the typical phases that the engineers are working in or are working on, right? So from my point of view, you usually have 4 phases. Phase one is the planning phase, where you are going to understand, okay, what is the status quo? What do we have right now? Then you're going to start collecting the requirements from the business side, and then you're going to work this into KPIs that you then later use, right? In the next phase. Then the second phase is the design phase. In the design phase, and let me look at this here. In the design phase, you'll look at, okay, what are the implementation efforts for each of your choices that you have. You'll look at choosing the right architecture and the right frameworks that are right for the problem and also are right for the company. Then you're going to work on predicting costs and working on how to scale this. Basically calculate, okay, if we grow like this, what would this mean for the architecture? How are we going to architect this then the right way? And then you would look into benchmarking existing tools, right? Look into how do these tools fit to the data and to the problems that I have. And once everything is done, then comes the implementation phase, where you say, okay, I'm packaging this into work packages and I'm delegating the responsibilities, because most likely you're not going to be the only one working with this. You're going to do risk assessment, testing after the development, and then you're going to create a documentation for it. Right? When the implementation is done, then you are going to move to the next phase of the project, into the basically 4th and final phase, operations. You're going to monitor the applications. You're going to look into how do I approach bug fixing? How do I, or what problems do you solve in the bug fixing thing? You know what I mean? That basically bug fixing is a big topic in there. You need to train people, not so that not just yourself knows the application, but also other people. And then you're going to work on improving the whole thing, right? So these are the 4 phases: planning, design, implementation, operations. Now, let's talk about, so is that clear, guys? Let me know in the comments. So what do you think about these 4 phases? And let's talk about where AI will come in. Let's all become electricians and plumbers. No, I like my job actually. Maybe replace isn't the way to think of it. Maybe it's transform the roles. Could also be. Could also be. I'm coming from the idea here, and I called this replace because lately I saw 2 videos of people. One who was a graphic designer, and another one who was a content creator. No, that's not the right word. How are these guys called? Who write stuff for websites and who write ads and so on? They're called copywriters. So one was I heard stories from 2 person on YouTube. One was a copywriter. The other was a content creator. No, was a graphic designer. And they were both replaced by AI. One person said, okay, it was always the way he was the only person in the company who did the graphic design for websites and so on. And the company started taking his templates, taking his content, feeding it to an AI, and then having the AI refactor this or redesign it, and then they pushed it to the clients. In a very short very short time, he was out of a job because people were not giving him more work because the AI literally took his job. That's for the graphic designer. The other one I heard was the copywriter, like Andrew said here. Thanks, Andrew. The copywriter, he had the thing that, and I remember from the video, he said the CEO shared on LinkedIn or some social media platform that he worked with ChatGPT and it's super awesome to generate content with it. And within a week, he said the whole company was, instead of giving him the things to copyright, doing it themselves. And he was like there for weeks. And at the end, somebody said, okay, you're still here. And he was fired. Like, I think that's what people usually see when they say replaced by AI. And that's why I called this. So is this for us engineers in waiting for us? Right? Okay. So UX, UI, UX design, yeah, stuff like this. So let's look at the phases. Let's go back to before. So basically, what I'm always saying, let's talk quickly about my, how's it called? My thesis on this. My thesis is we're not going to be replaced, but AI is going to start taking these responsibilities or doing these jobs for us that are absolutely annoying that nobody wants to do. That's my thesis. There's still going to be engineers needed because we do a lot more than just development. And these simple development tasks are going to be replaced by AI, maybe also data modeling, but the rest, difficult. So that's my thesis. Let's look at the phases again. So let's say we're starting here in the planning phase. First phase. Now, before you do anything, before you start with the architecture and whatever, you need to figure out, okay, what, as a consultant or as a designer, as an engineer in the company, you need to figure out, okay, what is it that we have? What is it that the business has? And the problem usually with this is that people don't know what it is that they have, and they don't know how to articulate it, right? Because they're not engineers. So the engineer needs to come in and figure out, okay, we right now have these kind of databases in there. We have this kind of data laying around. People are doing this with the data at this point in time, every day, every week. I think that is something for the planning phase that is very important. And I'm not sure how you would do this with AI, right? Because you need to feed the AI. And if you don't know what to feed it, because you're not an engineer, it's very difficult to figure out what is it. So understanding the status quo, I think that is something difficult. And then collecting the right requirements. This from a standpoint of, is this very difficult? Most likely not. The problem though is who has the requirements. The business has the requirements, right? And it is very difficult for the business to articulate these requirements in a way that it makes sense, or that it translates into an IT infrastructure, into pipelines, into a platform. You know what I mean? I think that is something is always very difficult. And also they usually have requirements that maybe are not the most important requirements. And they say these are the most important things, which are not. And so the engineer needs to come in, needs to talk to the business, needs to figure out, okay, what is it really that you need? What are the core components? What are the core requirements for you? And needs to ask a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions about the data. Ask a lot of questions about what they're trying to do, when they're trying to do. And I think that is also something like, I can't imagine how an AI would do this. I don't know. I don't know. And then the next step in this planning phase, defining good KPIs, right? You have the requirements. You understand, okay, what are they doing? How can we put this into KPIs so that we know when we develop our solution that this is a fit, that these requirements, that we fulfill these requirements. Right? And so doing the whole planning thing, the whole planning phase with AI, I can't see this happening. I think AI can help us there as engineers, because we know what questions to ask the business, and we know with the back and forth how to get to a good point, how to get to a good agreement. But for this, I don't know. I just don't see it in this phase, right? So let me know in the questions, right, in the comments. Let me know what you think. Before we move into design, what did Anthony say here? Don't forget, when you're using AI as data engineer, you'll likely be talking to an LLM that knows everything about your tech stack and your business. About the business, this is very difficult. No, I can't see an AI knowing everything about a specific business and the processes that are within a business. Like, I've worked in a huge corporation. That's highly unlikely. About the tech stack, about individual tools, yes. It most likely will know. Will it know everything about the architecture? From where? From where will it know everything about the architecture, right? Let's say you're using ChatGPT, and like, where does this come from? You would need to feed the AI with the right information so that it knows your existing tech stack. But who's going to do that? Like, that's highly from my side. You train it. Who is going to train it? The engineer? There's so much, especially in large corporations. There are so many departments, so many individual topics. I think you're making it a bit simple for yourself to say we're just going to train with it. So I think that is too simple thought through. But in general, yeah, if you have the documentation, how many projects are out there without really good documentation? Like, it's okay. So from that point, I don't see it. Now we're still in the phase. We haven't even talked about the architecture in the sense of what are we going to build. We're still at the phase where we want to understand what is out there, what requirements are there. Santiago says every project has no documentation. Unfortunately, this is something, and we're going to come to this. I saw this here in my when I scroll down here in implementation. There's having a good documentation. This is something where the AI really can help us. I'm immediately thinking, and that's not even AI, thinking about DBT, how easy it is to create a documentation from DBT. Right? And if AI comes in, no longer terribly documented projects. But I'm getting sidetracked already. So we're talking about this. Then we're coming to the design phase, the second phase. So somebody needs to implement this, right? That's our thing. We need to keep in mind. We need to think of, okay, what resources do we have? How difficult could this be to develop? Maybe this is I should have switched these two. Right? Choosing the right architecture and the right framework. But these two basically fit together, right? You need to choose the right architecture and the right framework that fits to okay, how difficult is it to implement? How long will it be? How difficult will it be? How many people do we have that can do this? And so on. So these steps, you can have ChatGPT, for instance, help you with this. Also with giving you options for the right architecture, for frameworks. But ultimately, somebody needs to make the decision to go with something, right? So, and without knowledge, just trying to, just asking ChatGPT, like if you feed then everything from the planning phase, if you feed everything to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is just an example here, right? It's just an example. You feed that. Hopefully it will deliver you a few architecture examples and a framework. I still feel this is difficult. Predicting costs and scaling better. This is something where AI can help a lot. Predicting costs. And I did on Instagram a few times. I did reels about how to predict infrastructure costs or platform costs, and because this is getting more and more difficult. There are a lot more services. Each service has a different payment scheme or charging scheme. So this is where actually last week I've used this from ChatGPT. I was just asking, okay, how can I'm building something on AWS. Which are the services I could use and how much would this cost? I was actually spitting out, quite interestingly enough, the costs for it. So, but is that right? You need somebody who can look into this and figure out if this is right. Benchmarking existing tools. This is something that you could replace by AI, I think. So from the planning phase, difficult to do with AI. Design, choosing the right architecture and predicting the cost, scaling better, benchmarking tools. This is something where I would say AI will support a lot. It's a big supporter of AI, AI supports. Luckily, so that we don't need to do everything ourselves. And then we're going to go into implementation next, implementation and operations. Santiago, dbt is great, fast API also. That's true. These frameworks help a lot. That's true. Documentation is always a problem in all projects. When the data points are electrical circuits, the AI will have to go and trace circuits. Let's see how clever it is. As you said, because then the documentation and the individual source codes, it's not just like you understand one file. It's a lot of sources or a lot of individual moving parts need to figure out how this work together. So, okay, so there are a few phases here. So in the design, in the planning and the design phase, planning difficult for AI. Design, can AI support the engineer a lot, but I don't see that this is going to be fully replaced by AI. And then comes the implementation page or phase. Implementation, I think this is where AI will help us a lot and replace engineers the most. And like, post in the chat post a one in the chat who is happy if implementation gets done by AI and you don't need to do all the implementation yourself. Post a one in the chat, and two if not. Like, if you love to do this, if you love to integrate the hundreds relational database, and one if you say I don't want to do this. So, implementation phase. Definition of work packages and responsibilities. Definition of work packages. So we have the architecture. We know which parts to develop. Now creating individual packages out of this, because the AI is not going to deliver everything at once, right? So definition of work packages and responsibilities. I don't know. Can AI learn these things about architecture and documentation? Well, documentation 100%. For documentation, it's really good to create a good documentation. I think so. But architecture, making the final decision on the architecture. Andrew says here, I think AI will be very good for reference for data protocols. It's getting very good at answering in-depth technical questions and scenarios. Yeah, yeah. I'm always thinking about not individual tools. I'm thinking as an engineer more as a whole, right? Because yes, it might, and that's maybe a thing for the implementation here. Defining the packages, what can we do with AI? What is something that our actual devs need to do? This might be something where AI can help or not. I don't know. Risk assessment, of course, I think that is something where the AI can help, because once the AI knows the infrastructure or the architecture that you want to develop, it can help with risk assessments and also for the individual packages if the packages are set. So I think that is a definition of work packages. I don't see that much of AI. I see more risk assessment, testing the right parts. That is something. Actually, I haven't. Do I have a point here of implementation? I don't. I don't actually have a topic here for the implementation. I think that is here with the work packages and responsibilities. And then we have the testing part and a good documentation. So I think the implementation phase, this is the big part where AI is going to take a lot of work from us engineers, where if we narrow stuff down enough into individual packages, this might be this step actually with defining the packages. I don't see this as much for AI. I see this more as an engineering job. But then when you have the individual packages, should be fairly easy to develop them through AI once it's good enough. Because if you sharpen these packages and make them small, should be able to do, and then creating the good documentation out of this. So I think this implementation phase is the phase where stuff will change the most for us. Don't forget, all these tech companies will have their LLMs. Well, a lot of companies, yes. A lot of companies will have their LLMs, but are they made specifically for these engineering jobs? That's the big question. Would it be possible that, let's say, Google creates their data engineer AI, and you collect you collect everything from the planning phase, right? You collect everything. What's the status quo? You collect the requirements. You define the KPIs. And then use Google to do the design and the implementation part. I don't see this. Because if it's something more for a single pipeline, this might work, but for a whole platform, because there are a lot of moving parts within a whole data platform, very difficult. I'm seeing this more as, for instance, you have the work package. We need to implement this in, let's say, in Snowflake, right? Implement this individual package with these requirements in Snowflake. Here's our data. I think it will be fairly simple for the AI to actually then go through the implementation part and implement this, right? If the package is sharp enough, I think that it's not a big deal. before we go to operations, what did Anthony say? AI will have a huge impact on a lot of positions. The focus will be on software engineers, including data, because of cost. There will be a lot of energy put into this cost. Of course, engineering is cost, is always the thing where people they would love to do nothing, no engineering, have just the results. Of course, there will be a lot of money spent on this. Yeah, so that's something. Okay, so now we have implementation. Let's look at the last point, operations. Operations. So with the approaches to monitoring, with the monitoring part of the operations, so it's monitoring, bug fixing, training people, and to actually then be able to do the monitoring, be able to do the bug fixing, be able to further develop this and improve the whole thing. Monitoring, I think that is something where the AI will come in, will learn how the system is or how the architecture works, how the processes are working, and then figure out once something is going wrong and what is going wrong. I think that is something that's very clear. That's very, very. There are companies who are doing data observability already, like IBM DataBand or like Kensu, who are already very strong in this. So monitoring, I see something that is very highly likely for AI. Then the actual bug fixing. Yes and no. I think it will help us there, but having the AI, let's say you build everything with the AI and then you have to bug fix. Have the AI fix the bugs? I don't know. Helping might be the big part here as well. Improving the processes, that is, I see this as very difficult for the AI to figure out where to improve the already built things. So we see operations is also something where the AI will come in and will help us and also will replace us in some parts. Right? So let's look at the individual phases. So what did we see with the phases? We saw the planning phase, which I think is very difficult to do with AI because you need good engineers to understand this. In the design phase, there are parts like choosing the right architecture, the right frameworks, where I see AI just as the helper, because doing this or having AI do this I see this very difficult. Basically everything except its design is also difficult. I think planning design is very difficult. When we come then to the implementation phase and to operations phase, this is something where AI will shine, where AI will take away work from the engineer, where AI will, in the beginning, replace the simple tasks or do the simple tasks for us, and then later will do more and will be replacing engineers. I think that is something that we see, that is something clear, a clear trend that we see. Also, there are a ton of tools who are doing, like I'm thinking about Copilot and tools who can build whole data pipelines with no code. So I think that is something. Implementation operations is something where AI will in the beginning help us and then replace us. But for the first two phases, the planning of the whole thing and then the design, I see that I can't imagine having this done without an engineer or without engineers. I don't see this. And probably, Andrew says, probably a danger in a company run by non-technical management who thinks they are going to save money and avoid having to deal with engineers. Someone will still have to refine the requirements. Exactly my point. That is exactly my point. Right? It's the same thing as when people thought, okay, we're going to do data science. We're just hiring data scientists, and that's it. That's it. Then we're done. When we have the scientists, there are going to 10 new projects come out, 10 new revenue streams come out for the company. It's not. So at some point, I know people don't like the engineering. Engineering is expensive, but I don't see it completely go away. I don't see us replaced by AI. I see us more as let's say the pilot and the co-pilot, right? The pilot is still the engineer, but the co-pilot is the AI that is going to help the engineer in the implementation and in the operations phase. And hopefully in the beginning with easy tasks, and then hopefully with more difficult tasks. Like who wrote this? Anthony, I think, wrote this in the beginning here. Yeah. Anthony said, we still need humans. It's just a company won't need 10 or 100 engineers. They need 1 or 10. Depending on how much they do, I can see this. I see this more as, and like, no, let's go back to the phases here. Implementation, operations. What are these phases? These phases are usually software development heavy, right? Software development and operations for software heavy. So basically the software development part from the data engineering will be taken over, I think. I think that would make sense. Can we I think that's a good point to end with this. Let me know in the comments, the software engineering part of engineering, will this go away? Will AI help us there? I think it's a very, very logical point to come to say we start with this. And this is also a big topic, and then have the planning and the design done by the engineers. Yeah. Again, let me know in the comments. Post a comment on YouTube. What do you think? Is this BS that I'm talking here? To have no idea. What about data modeling? Who's going to do the data modeling? Hopefully also some AI will help us with the data modeling. Because it's in the implementation phase, right? Let's see. Okay, I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. And then we're going to talk soon.